The moment you believe in your dream, the world starts adjusting itself to make it real. Before anyone builds anything great, before the business, the journey, the transformation, there is always a vision, not a vague wish, not a daydream, but a clear, almost tangible image of what could be. Vision is the psychological blueprint of success, and without it, you drift. You become reactive. Life happens to you instead of through you. That's why I say, with deep conviction, that the first role of success is vision, because you have to see it before you can live it. This isn't just motivational fluff. There's serious psychology behind it. Human beings are visual creatures, not just with our eyes, but with our minds. What we imagine, what we emotionally connect to, has real consequences on how we behave. The brain doesn't distinguish much between vividly imagined experiences and actual ones. That's why top athletes visualize their performance. That's why world-class performers rehearse success in their minds long before they step onto the stage. And here's the deeper truth. Your vision determines your values, and your values determine your behavior. If your vision is shallow, if all you see is money, fame, or escape, you'll chase shallow outcomes. But if your vision is rooted in purpose, in meaningful contribution, in growth, you'll orient your entire life towards something noble, something sustaining. So when people say they don't know where to start, I ask, well, what do you see? Not what they want, what they see. Can they describe it? Can they feel it? Can they suffer for it? Because vision isn't fantasy. It's not watching someone else live their life on social media and wishing you could trade places. It's painful. It demands clarity. It often requires isolation and struggle. You sit with the uncomfortable reality of your current life, and you imagine something better, not just for yourself, but for the people around you. You start to see a path, a different version of you, not an escape, but a becoming, a calling. And this is where a lot of people give up, because to maintain a strong vision over time, especially when the world throws you curveballs, is exhausting. Life isn't designed to support your vision. Life is chaotic. People will doubt you. You'll doubt yourself. You'll face moments of failure, uncertainty, even humiliation. And in those moments, your vision is the only compass that can guide you back. If you don't have it, you get lost. You lose momentum. You become like a leaf in the wind. There's also a moral dimension to vision. When you choose to pursue a meaningful goal, you automatically take on responsibility. You're saying, this is worth sacrificing for. That's no small thing. Most people avoid that weight. They'd rather float through life, complaining about circumstances, blaming external factors, waiting for luck. But people who succeed, and I don't mean people who get lucky or go viral, I mean people who build something enduring, they carry vision like a burden and a gift. They wake up with it, they suffer for it, and they build their life around it. Now, I want to speak to the part of you that's still unsure, because I know it's there. Maybe you're thinking, I don't have a clear vision. I don't know what I want. That's okay, but don't stay there. Start imagining, start writing, start being brutally honest about what excites you and what you can no longer tolerate. Pay attention to what pulls your attention again and again. Don't ignore those signals. They're clues. Your vision isn't out there waiting for you to discover it fully formed. It's inside you, waiting for you to shape it through intention, through trial and error, through courage. There's one more thing. When your vision is real, when you really believe in it, you start behaving differently. You walk with more certainty. You speak with more conviction. People notice. Doors open, not because the world changed, but because you did. That's the power of vision. It changes your internal world, which in turn changes how you interact with the external one. So, if you take nothing else from this, remember this. You cannot live what you cannot see. Get serious about your vision. Treat it like it matters, because it does. Your future depends on it. Motivation gets you started, but discipline keeps you going. Creating content, managing your travel page, or planning for the next adventure, these demand consistency. Success belongs to those who show up, not just when it's easy, but especially when it's hard. Discipline is the silent partner of every success story. There's a strange belief floating around, especially in modern culture, that motivation is the magic force behind success. That if you can just stay excited or inspired enough, things will fall into place. But the truth is far less glamorous and far more powerful. Success doesn't belong to the most motivated. It belongs to the most disciplined, because motivation is a state, discipline is a habit, motivation is emotional, discipline is structural. One comes and goes, the other stays and builds. And here's the core of it. Discipline is doing what you know needs to be done, especially when you don't feel like it. That's the test. Anyone can act when they're excited. Anyone can stick to a routine when it's new and energizing. But real growth begins the moment that initial high wears off. That's when you're faced with a choice. Do I show up anyway? Do I keep going even when it's dull, repetitive, or painful? This is where success begins to separate the serious from the sentimental. Discipline is the mechanism through which vision becomes reality. If vision is your direction, then discipline is the vehicle that takes you there. Without it, vision is just fantasy. A dream that sounds nice but stays locked in your head because you didn't build the bridge of daily effort to make it real. Psychologically, discipline forces us to act against our momentary desires. And this is incredibly important because your emotional state is inconsistent. It fluctuates with sleep, diet, stress, even the weather. But discipline isn't dependent on any of those variables. It is the part of you that says, I will act according to my values, not according to my moods. That is the definition of strength, psychological strength. Now, discipline often gets misunderstood. People think it's about suppression, forcing yourself into rigid routines and denying all pleasure. That's not it. Real discipline is about alignment. It's aligning your behavior with your higher goals. It's about saying no to the things that sabotage your future, not because you're punishing yourself, but because you respect yourself too much to let short-term impulses dictate your life. There's also a philosophical element to discipline that we don't talk about enough. When you act with discipline, you're embodying a kind of moral truth. You're choosing to live according to principle rather than preference. And that builds character. Day by day, your actions begin to reshape your identity. You stop being someone who tries and becomes someone who does. You stop making excuses and start making progress. You don't need to announce it. You live it. But let's be honest, discipline is hard. You will resist it. Your mind will offer you every justification to break the structure. Just this once, it'll whisper, you deserve a break. And sometimes those whispers will be right. We're human, and rest is essential. But the danger is not in resting. The danger is in forgetting why you started. And discipline is what brings you back. It's the voice that says, you are capable of more. Keep going. The world rewards discipline more than talent. Why? Because talent is common. Discipline is rare. And in a world where distractions are designed to hijack your attention, the ability to stay consistent has become a kind of superpower. If you can train yourself to do difficult things regularly, to delay gratification, to resist laziness, to act with intention, even when no one's watching, you will outlast and outperform most people. And that's the deeper truth. Success is rarely about being exceptional in the moment. It's about being reliable over time. It's about showing up on the days when nothing feels exciting, when the progress is invisible, when the doubts are loud. Show up anyway. That's discipline. And it is that quiet, consistent commitment, not the loud declarations, that build something real. So here's what I want you to remember. Discipline is freedom earned through structure. If you want to create a life that is meaningful, focused, and fulfilling, don't wait to feel ready. Decide who you want to become and then act like it, especially when it's hard. Passion is the emotional engine behind your actions. When you share your journey with heart, whether it's a video, a picture, or a moment on the road, people feel it. Passion connects. Passion inspires. Passion is why you started and why you must keep going. If your purpose touches your heart, it will touch others too. You can have the vision, you can have the discipline. But if there's no emotional core, no genuine passion driving that, you'll eventually burn out or lose your way. Passion, real passion, is not just excitement. It's not some fleeting feeling you chase when things are going well. It's deeper than that. It's the emotional commitment to a path, to an idea, to a mission that grips you, often before you can fully explain why. Passion isn't always loud. Sometimes it's a quiet, persistent pull, a voice inside you that says, this matters. What most people misunderstand about passion is that they assume it. It's supposed to be easy or feel good all the time. But true passion is demanding. It's relentless. It refuses to let you go. And if you ignore it long enough, it begins to rot inside you. That's when you feel that creeping sense of regret, that ache that maybe you were meant for something more, but you buried it under practicality, fear, or convenience. Passion is what allows you to suffer with purpose. Because let's be honest, anything worth doing, anything meaningful is going to come with hardship. You'll be rejected. You'll be misunderstood. You'll want to quit. And in those moments, when discipline begins to crack under pressure and vision starts to blur, it's passion that keeps you grounded. Passion reminds you why you started. Now this gets psychologically interesting because passion aligns your emotional system with your rational goals. It makes effort feel meaningful, even when it's painful. If discipline is the structure, passion is the energy that fills it. It gives your suffering narrative coherence. Without passion, even success feels hollow. You reach the top and there's no joy there because the process that brought you to that place had no heart. Think about the people you admire, not just for what they achieved, but for how they carried themselves through life. They weren't just competent. They weren't just hardworking. They were alive. You could feel it in their words, their actions, their presence. They had something burning inside them. And that fire gave their life texture and depth. That's what passion does. It animates your existence. It creates authenticity. And authenticity is magnetic. People are drawn to those who are genuinely moved by their own mission. But passion also requires responsibility. You have to protect it, nurture it. You can't outsource it to the world's approval. Social media, for example, is filled with people chasing likes instead of meaning, mistaking attention for passion. And the moment your passion becomes performative, it begins to die. Passion must be rooted in something intrinsic. It has to be yours, not borrowed from someone else's expectations. And here's a hard truth. Sometimes your passion won't be profitable at first. Sometimes it will seem irrational. People might tell you to be realistic, to get your head out of the clouds. But passion isn't about what's immediately convenient. It's about what's enduringly true. That doesn't mean you don't adapt or think strategically, but it does mean you refuse to betray the part of you that knows what truly matters. Because once you lose that, everything else starts to feel like a lie. So how do you know what your passion is? You listen. You pay attention to the things that spark emotion in you. Joy, anger, curiosity, grief. You notice where you naturally invest your energy, where time disappears. You ask yourself what you would still care about even if no one applauded. And when you find it, you commit, not just when it's convenient, but especially when it's difficult. There's a kind of moral weight to passion. It calls you to live honestly, to express what's inside you with integrity. And if you do that consistently, something beautiful begins to happen. Your life starts to reflect your soul. You stop pretending. You start creating. And in doing so, you give others permission to do the same. So remember this, passion is not a luxury. It's a responsibility. Don't wait for permission to feel deeply about your path. The world needs more people who are fully alive. And that starts with you. Every mistake, every delay, every visa struggle or setback, these are not failures. They are lessons. Success demands that we stay humble and hungry, always learning, always growing. Don't be afraid to ask, adapt, and evolve. Success demands movement, and not just forward movement, but upward movement. And that kind of growth is only possible through learning. If you're not learning, you're not growing. And if you're not growing, then even your so-called success will eventually turn into decay. That's not pessimism, it's reality. Life is complex, unpredictable, and constantly shifting. The people who rise are not necessarily the strongest or the smartest. They're the ones most willing to adapt. And adaptation is impossible without humility, without curiosity, without learning. We often think of learning as something passive, something that happens in school or in front of a screen. But that's not learning. That's data collection. Real learning is painful. It forces you to admit what you don't know, to confront your limitations, and to wrestle with the discomfort of being wrong. It's not about downloading facts. It's about transforming yourself through experience, reflection, and effort. Now, there's a kind of arrogance that kills learning before it even begins. The belief that you figured it out, that you know enough, that whatever's not working is someone else's fault. This mindset is poison, because the moment you believe you have nothing left to learn, you've sentenced yourself to stagnation. And stagnation is the beginning of failure. It's just failure that hasn't arrived yet. Think about this psychologically. The brain is wired to form patterns. That's a survival mechanism. But those same patterns can become prisons. If you respond to challenges today the same way you did 5 years ago, you're not stable, you're stuck. And being stuck while the world moves forward is the fastest way to fall behind. Learning is the process by which you escape those internal prisons. It's the mechanism through which you update your map of the world so it actually reflects reality, your assumptions. The truth is, every failure, every rejection, every uncomfortable moment is an invitation to learn, not to shame yourself, not to retreat into self-pity, but to ask real questions. What did I miss? What can I do differently? Where am I blind? This takes courage. It requires a mindset that sees struggle not as a sign of inadequacy, but as a necessary part of development. And here's something people rarely admit. You will outgrow people if you commit to learning, because many are more loyal to their comfort than their future. They'd rather repeat the same mistakes than confront the discomfort of change. And if you keep learning, if you keep improving, you become a mirror to them, a reminder of what they could be, but are choosing not to become. You have to be okay with that, because your growth cannot depend on their approval. But learning doesn't just happen through pain. It also happens through curiosity, through the willingness to explore new ideas, challenge your own beliefs, and absorb perspectives outside your bubble. That's where true intelligence lies, not in knowing all the answers, but in asking better questions. The kind of questions that open up your mind and stretch your soul. We live in a time where access to information is unprecedented. But access is not the same as absorption. You can scroll endlessly through videos and books and never change. Why? Because passive consumption is not learning. Learning requires integration. You have to take what you've discovered and apply it. Try it, reflect on it, let it reshape your character and sharpen your instincts. And there's a final dimension to all of this, one that's deeply philosophical. To learn is to admit you are not yet who you could be. It's to acknowledge your current self as unfinished. That's a powerful admission, because it means your identity is flexible. Your past doesn't define your limits. Your future is still open. You are a work in progress, and you get to decide what that progress looks like. So I'll leave you with this. Growth is not automatic. It's chosen. And that choice begins with the courage to learn. Choose it daily. Choose it especially when it's difficult, because the more you learn, the more capable, responsible, and free you become. Success doesn't come from knowing it all. It comes from learning what you didn't know yesterday. Treating success is not just about reaching your destination. It's about lifting others as you rise. Whether it's helping fellow travelers, inspiring someone back home, or giving your audience hope through your story, make your success meaningful. When your dream becomes a light for someone else, you've truly succeeded. There comes a point, once you've clarified your vision, embraced discipline, fueled it with passion, and committed yourself to lifelong learning, when the final barrier to success reveals itself, resilience. Because even with all the right tools, life is still going to hit you. And it won't ask if you're ready. It won't care how much you've planned or how noble your goals are. It will test you impactedly, unfairly, and repeatedly. And in those moments, it is your ability to endure that determines whether you collapse or rise. Resilience isn't about pretending that nothing hurts. It's not the denial of struggle. In fact, it's the opposite. Resilience starts with fully acknowledging your suffering, your disappointments, your failures, your heartbreaks, and then deciding that none of those things will define you. It's a psychological toughness that doesn't come from being hard. It comes from being honest about the cost, honest about your pain, and still choosing to stand up and take the next step. This isn't just motivational language. It's a psychological and philosophical reality. Human beings are meaning makers. We're not only shaped by what happens to us, but by how we interpret what happens. What often breaks people isn't the suffering itself. It's the sense that the suffering serves no purpose. When pain feels meaningless, it becomes far harder to bear. But when we can connect our pain to a deeper reason, to growth, to responsibility, to a purpose beyond ourselves, it becomes something else entirely. It becomes survivable. It can even become transformative. Viktor Frankl, a psychiatrist and Holocaust survivor, spoke to this truth with profound clarity. He wrote, "Those who have a why to live can bear almost anyhow." That's not just philosophy. That's lived experience. It's a truth forged in the darkest circumstances. And it tells us something powerful, meaning it doesn't eliminate pain, but it does give it structure. It gives us a reason to keep going, even when everything inside us wants to stop. So let's take a moment and bring this idea closer to your own experience. Think about those times in your life when you felt overwhelmed, when you were tempted to give up on a dream, on a relationship, on yourself. We all have those moments. They are part of the human condition. And yet, you made it through. You're here now, listening, breathing, still moving forward. That alone matters more than most people realize. It means something. It proves something. It proves that you're stronger than you think. The trouble is, resilience is rarely obvious in the moment. It's often quiet, unglamorous, and unnoticed. But that doesn't make it any less powerful. In fact, that's exactly how strength is built. You don't develop resilience when life is smooth. You develop it in the struggle, in the moments of doubt, in the midst of failure, in the aftermath of loss. You develop it when you refuse to let those moments define the entirety of who you are. And there's a shift that takes place, a turning point in the mind and the heart, when you stop asking, why is this happening to me? And instead ask, what can I do now? That moment, when you take back agency from circumstances, that's the beginning of true resilience. It's not about pretending everything's fine. It's about choosing not to be paralyzed by what's difficult. That's a different kind of strength, a moral strength, because resilience isn't just about you. It becomes a source of strength for others. When you continue, despite the pressure to quit, you send a message to the people around you, your family, your community, even strangers who observe your courage. You become a living example of perseverance, a quiet voice of hope in a world that often feels cynical. Your resilience creates ripples. People remember the ones who didn't give up. And when they face their own darkness, they remember you didn't back down from yours. That matters more than we like to admit. Now, none of this is meant to glorify pain. We don't have to romanticize hardship to respect the strength it can produce. Life will challenge you whether you walk a path of purpose or not. That's the reality. But the choice in front of you is simple. Will your suffering serve a higher aim, or will it simply pass through you, leaving nothing behind but exhaustion? Resilience is what transforms pain into something meaningful. It turns hardship into testimony, scars into stories of endurance. We sometimes wait for life to become fair, or for things to get easier, before we commit to resilience. But waiting doesn't serve you. Life won't always be fair. Circumstances won't always be kind. But your response, that can still be courageous. That can still be noble. Resilience gives you back that choice. It doesn't erase hardship, but it lets you meet it with dignity and with strength. So here's the truth to carry forward. You don't need a life without hardship. You need a self that refuses to be broken by it. And that self is built not through ease, but through effort. Not in comfort, but in rising every single time life knocks you down. Choose to rise. Choose to endure. And in doing so, you'll become someone not even adversity can silence.